What's all the excitement about? Nate Evans repeated to the stunned finance department. What should we tell him? The staff all privately wondered. Nate had no idea Lisa had been altering their financial documents in order to frame them and make their team manager, Victoria, look foolish. Furthermore, they had found this out before anyone else, and Victoria had publicly called out Lisa, humiliating her. Nothing, Shelley meekly replied. It seemed like it would be better not to let Nate know about this sort of thing, at least not like this. Victoria coolly pivoted for the team. Lisa was in just now. We had a brief chat before I followed your instructions, letting her know that you were not in the office. Nate chuckled to himself. That's what made you all so happy? Lisa visited your department? You all must be very fond of her. She really is indescribable. Everyone smiled, a few muffled laughs amongst them, but no one said a word. It was more than indescribable. Lisa was a good-for-nothing, white-collar criminal, trying to make the rest of them look bad. She deserved whatever terrible things life threw her way. Victoria pardoned the segue, but is there a problem with today's accounts? Nate questioned. Someone has mentioned something about this in the meeting earlier today and said I'd look into it. Nothing I should worry about, hopefully. Oh, that. Victoria couldn't help but smile at this. We looked into it and the matter's been resolved. Seems like there was a small hiccup, but I handled it personally. I don't think there will be any more problems with the financial accounts in the future, sir, Shelley added with a wink. Shelley had been working overtime for the past few days to fix all the discrepancies Lisa had caused, and it was really tiring her out. She was beyond thrilled to be on the other side of it. She had to postpone a date with a very promising young man for a long time. Thinking about it, she might be finally able to have that romantic date with this handsome man as soon as this Saturday. She had butterflies in her stomach just thinking about it. She'd finally be able to have a personal life again. That's what I love to hear. I always know I can count on this team. Nate smiled, heading back toward his office. Oh, one more thing. I completely forgot we're a little underwater with the end of the quarter coming up. So I'm going to need some of you to come in this weekend and put in some hours on Saturday and Sunday. Shelley, if you could spearhead that would be excellent. Love this team. Oh, groans and moans came from the crowd, Shelley especially. Nearly all of the good mood that had come from ousting Lisa had gone at the mention of weekend overtime. Even if they took care of a demon like Lisa, they were still victims to the giant corporate machine. After retreating from the public humiliation in the finance department, Lisa stormed straight past her secretary to her desk. Lisa slammed the folder full of evidence on her desk with a wham, causing her long-suffering secretary to jump in shock. Lisa's tempers were something she had gotten used to over the years, but this was a whole new level of anger she had never seen from her before. Lisa threw open the folder and began flipping through the pages Victoria Park had handed her like a deranged woman. There were more than 20 pieces of paper in total, and the evidence was damning. The financial team had expertly created 2 comparative maps on each page, including the original and forged documents, along with timestamps, specific number swaps, and noting the illogical nature of each supposed mistake. The more Lisa studied them, the redder and redder her face became, till she looked like she was going to pop. This didn't look good for her. All of the evidence pointed to someone clearly trying to frame the finance department. Ah! Lisa erupted in a scream, tearing the documents up into tiny pieces. She threw them around her office till it looked like a snow globe. Shaking in her chair, Lisa's secretary put in her earbuds, pretending like she couldn't hear or see the tantrum her boss was throwing. She found it was always best if she didn't get involved. While she was thinking about it, the secretary started web browsing for secretarial job listings in the area. She didn't think she could work with this crazy woman much longer. Lisa's secretary was so preoccupied with ignoring Lisa, she almost didn't notice her screaming her name in her face. "Hey, you!" Lisa screamed. "I'm talking to you, pig brain." Lisa's secretary took out her earbuds. "I'm sorry, ma'am. What is it?" "Can you just do one simple task? Are you that thick in the head? Or are you actively trying to sabotage me?" Lisa said as she slammed some of the remaining tattered documents on the table. This is," the secretary stammered. How could Lisa blame her for this? She was a secretary, not some sort of master of corporate espionage and sabotage, and she was certainly not a finance and accounting major to begin with. She was just following Lisa's insane instructions to move a few numbers around in the company's books. How could she know what it was for, or what had happened as a result of it? Is she really going to put all the blame on me for this? She wondered. If you so much as think about making such a monumental mistake like this again, you can pack up your desk and get the hell out of my office. Lisa berated her. The secretary immediately shrank her neck like a turtle hiding in its shell. She tried to form the words to respond, but they were caught in her throat. Lisa really was terrified when she got like this. "Get out!" Lisa cursed, steam practically coming out of her ears. "But the secretary started. "Out!" Lisa screamed, huffing and puffing. The secretary lowered her head, turning around to leave. Maybe this was for the best, though. She didn't think her heart could take another outburst like this. Maybe she'd finally have a life back. Plus, collecting severance pay wouldn't be so bad. Just as she was thinking things might be working out for the better, Lisa stopped her. "Wait a minute." Lisa took a deep breath and asked, "Have you finished writing up the plan I gave you this morning?" The secretary retracted her hand from the door handle. So close to escape. She turned to look at Lisa and replied, "I haven't finished rewriting the document you gave me yesterday, so I haven't quite gotten around to the plan." This woman is insane, she thought. I only have one pair of hands, only one head. I can only go so fast. Lisa had not only given her the normal work of a secretary to do, but often passed off her own director work. The work never ended, and it was extremely tiring. "What am I supposed to do?" the secretary mused. "Find a way to clone myself?" Lisa kicked the tiny metal trash can by the desk. "You idiot! You should have finished the assignment I gave you yesterday by now." Lisa got even angrier hearing that the secretary hadn't even started. "You sent it to me 10 minutes after I got off work yesterday," the secretary retorted. This was getting ridiculous. Did Lisa expect her to work through the night off the clock? Just researching for her would take hours? "Then why wouldn't you take it home to do it there?" Lisa frowned and scolded her. The secretary tried to find the words to explain, but it was impossible to talk to Lisa in this state. "Forget it," Lisa lamented. "Don't give me an explanation. I'm all alone in this company, surrounded by idiots and riffraff. If you can't do it, you can't do it." Lisa glared at the secretary in disgust, adding, "But hear this. I want both of those documents to appear on my desk by noon tomorrow at the same time. Do you understand?" "Yes," the secretary replied, lowering her head in shame. "What was that? I can't hear you. Speak louder. Or are you mute?" Lisa sneered. "Yes, I heard you. Understood," the secretary replied. "If it's one thing I hate, it's people mumbling." Lisa snorted and pointed at the remaining pages of Victoria's document. "Now, take a look at these documents and think them over." But, the secretary started to say. "But what?" "But you tore them up?" her secretary finished. Lisa groaned. "I don't care. Pick them up and fix them or ask the finance department for another copy. It doesn't matter to me how you do it, just get it done." The secretary grabbed what she could of the documents, turned around, and walked out the door. She took a moment on the other side to take a deep breath, to suppress all the depression and dissatisfaction in her heart. Breathing techniques were something she and her therapist were working on, but it barely seemed to help these days. If this kind of treatment kept up, she would be run ragged. The secretary looked at the remaining documents in her hands. Maybe I'll write an anonymous letter to the new CEO, she thought. That would show her. Back in her office, Lisa was already in a much better mood. Leaning back in her chair, she took out a nail file and scratched away at her perfectly manicured nails. Now that she was alone, she could finally think a little more clearly. She cursed Victoria to herself. She couldn't believe how ruthless she was. For now, she would have to drop her plan to frame the finance department. That's fine, she said to herself. She still had plenty of time to think of something else. Unless, Lisa frowned slightly. Did Victoria have it in her to turn over that document? She remembered Victoria saying that she had made backup copies. Would she report her to the higher-ups? No, Lisa thought. She's just saying that to look good in front of her team. Lisa figured there was no way Victoria would have the guts to go through with something like that. Even if she did, Lisa's father could make things very difficult for Victoria and her beloved financial team. He was a shareholder of the company after all. If she dares to cause trouble, it'll be her who's at a loss, Lisa scoffed. As Lisa looked out her office window, she felt assured her position in the company was safe. No one can touch me up here, she said. No one. Back in the finance department, Victoria Park was packing up her things and prepping to get off work for the day. As far as she was concerned, Lisa was miles away. She had put the squabbles behind her, and the only thing she was thinking about was what she was going to cook for dinner tonight and what groceries she needed to get on the way home later. Olivia's focusing so hard on school, she thought. Maybe I'll buy some fresh fish to cook up for her. And Michael's been working so much that he barely remembers to buy his own food. I could get him some of those specialty mixed nuts he likes. Victoria paused when she said this. Why should I pay extra attention to him? Despite thinking that, Victoria made a point to go out of her way to buy some things she knew Michael liked. I really do owe him, she grumbled discontentedly, walking towards the bus stop. Usually, Victoria would have gone to a grocery store near her home, but they didn't sell the specialty nut mix Michael liked. She had no choice but to get off the bus 4 stops in advance on the way home from work. After buying her groceries, she would take the bus the rest of the way home. Just as she made it to the bus stop, a private car rolled up to her and stopped. "Victoria!" The man rolled down the window and revealed a sunny smile. "Nate!" Victoria exclaimed. "What a coincidence! Are you also doing your grocery shopping?" "Actually, her boss smiled and said, "I was just passing by. Why don't you get in the car? I'll drive you home." "Thank you so much, sir, but no need," Victoria replied gratefully. "I'll wait for the bus." "I insist," he pressed. "I have something I have to tell you." "I see." Victoria thought about it and nodded. "All right," she said and got in the car. Nate Evans' eyes lit up when she agreed. Now's the time, he thought. No matter what, he would take the opportunity to tell her. Nate couldn't help but smile as he watched Victoria rummage through her grocery bag, double-checking she had gotten all the right ingredients for the meal she was planning to make when she got home. What an amazing woman, Nate thought to himself. She works so hard day after day, and yet still finds the energy to cook a healthy dinner for her and her daughter. Some days I feel so run down after work, even ordering takeout feels like too much effort. Nate pondered as he thought about the last few times he forewent a proper dinner. The other night, he was even so tired he ate a jar of olives instead of cooking. "So, what are we having tonight?" Nate teased, secretly hoping he could wrangle himself an invitation into Victoria's home. Victoria smiled good-naturedly at Nate. "I'm making dinner for my daughter, Olivia," Victoria explained. She finished rummaging through her bag and leaned back in her seat, satisfied that she had gotten everything she would need. "That girl works so hard. I want to make sure she's getting the right nutritional balance to stay energized for her classwork." Nate glanced over at Victoria. I read an article recently about New York City prep schools. It seems the workload is increasing every year as college acceptance gets more and more competitive. That's a lot of pressure to put on kids. Victoria sighed. It really is, but Olivia can handle it. You know she was the junior class president last year, and I have a feeling she might run again this year. Victoria smirked, so proud of everything her daughter was accomplishing. Wow, impressive, Nate proclaimed. He pulled up to a red light and took the opportunity to gaze at Victoria. It was difficult not to like this woman more and more with every new piece of information he learned about her. I would love the opportunity to be a parent to a daughter like Olivia, Nate said. He knew he might be pushing the boundaries of their relationship with this comment, but he couldn't help himself. Victoria beamed at him. That's so sweet, so you're hoping for a little baby girl one day? Nate frowned to himself. That wasn't exactly what he had meant by his remark. The light turned green, and Nate focused his attention back on the busy street ahead of him, trying to shake it off. I guess so, Nate said, thinking of ways he could make his meaning more obvious. Or, if I met someone who already had a kid, that'd be okay too. Nate blushed, slightly worried he was now being too obvious. At my age, most of the women I meet have at least been married and divorced once. Oh, but with your looks, I'm sure you'd have no trouble finding a young wife, Victoria said. She was half teasing him, but there was also a note of sincerity in her voice. She really did want him to be happy. Who knows, Nate said, trying to not let his disappointment show. How could he explain that he didn't want a younger wife? What he wanted was the elegant, kind, worldly woman who sat next to him right now, making his heart patter. They sat awkwardly in silence for a moment. Nate racked his brain, trying to think of a topic to switch to before he said anything he might not be able to take back. But before he could even open his mouth, Victoria spoke up. So, I heard a rumor, Victoria said, a hint of timidity in her voice. Nate braced himself. Could this be it? Was it possible that his affection for Victoria was so obvious it had become water cooler gossip? I had heard, Victoria continued, that you and Lisa have a bit of a past? Nate swallowed. This was not something he had hoped to discuss with Victoria or anyone. He cleared his throat. We met during college. After we graduated, we were close for a while. Victoria nodded. She understood what Nate was insinuating. But then we parted ways and eventually lost contact. Nate continued, clearly leaving out some key details to the story. Honestly, it wasn't until she started working with us at Confluence that I even remembered she existed. Ouch, Victoria thought. She could already tell that Lisa liked Nate and was annoyed by his friendship with Victoria. But now she understood much more clearly where Lisa's anger came from. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, Victoria thought to herself, feeling for the first time a bit of sympathy for Lisa. I can't blame her then for being the way she is, Victoria said to Nate. It must be hard to lose a man as wonderful as yourself. Nate blushed and tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Oblivious to Nate's discomfort, Victoria continued on. So if things with Lisa are truly over, is there anyone else special you have your eyes on these days? Nate glanced quickly over at Victoria, his cheeks turning hot. Should I tell her? He wondered to himself. No, it's too risky. If she doesn't reciprocate my feelings, it would make working together too awkward. There is someone, Nate answered, deciding to stay vague for now. But I'm not sure if she feels the same way. If she knows what's good for her, how could she not like such a great catch as Nate Evans? Victoria teased warmly. Nate's heart flipped in his chest, and he bit the inside of his cheek to stop himself from grinning too widely. But just in case, Victoria went on, I'll make sure to keep my eye out for any young woman who might be your type. Nate's stomach dropped, but he smiled and forced a small laugh nonetheless. Nate parked the car in front of Victoria's building, insisting that he help her carry the groceries at least into the lobby. He walked with Victoria to the elevator, setting down the bags at her feet. "You really didn't need to do that." Victoria smiled at Nate. "You already went out of your way to drive me home, and now you carry these heavy bags for me? You really are a gentleman." Nate looked down at his feet bashfully. "It was no problem, really," Nate said. The elevator door opened, and Nate helped put the bags inside, then stepped back. "Well, I should be going now," he said. He turned to leave, but Victoria stopped him. "Wait," she called, holding the elevator door open with her hand. "If you don't already have plans, why don't you join us for dinner?" Nate beamed, his heart fluttering out of control. He bit his lip to control his expressions before turning back toward Victoria. "Are you sure it's all right? Will you have enough food?" Nate asked. If he was going to join Victoria and her daughter for an intimate dinner, he had to make sure he was truly wanted. But Victoria smiled the warmest smile Nate had ever seen. "Please, join us, I insist," Victoria said before ushering him onto the elevator with her. Nate carried the grocery bags, following Victoria down the hallway to her apartment. Just as she was about to put the key in the lock, the door swung open. "I thought that was you. You're home a bit late," a call from the doorway. Nate's heart dropped when he recognized the voice. It was Michael Johnson. Victoria blushed slightly, looking a bit flustered. Michael had been working such late hours recently that she did not expect him to be home at this hour. "I stopped for groceries on the way home. I wanted to make something special for dinner tonight," she explained. "How thoughtful." Michael grinned at Victoria. "You know how much Liv and I love your cooking." He leaned into Victoria to greet her properly, but she awkwardly moved out of the way. "And look, I brought a guest home," she said, stepping aside so Michael could see Nate. Nate set down the bags nervously and reached out a hand to Michael. "Mr. Johnson, how are you tonight?" Michael looked at Nate's outstretched hand for a long moment, making the man sweat with anxiety. Then he forced a smile and took Nate's hand in his own. "Any guest of Victoria's is welcome," Michael said, trying to hide his distrust. "Please, won't you come in?" Michael stood aside for Victoria to enter, then quickly followed her, placing her hand on the small of her back so that Nate would have to enter behind him. Inside the apartment, Victoria bustled around, trying to do a quick tidying up for their guest. "Please, Nate, have a seat," Victoria said, after rearranging the couch cushions to make a comfy spot. "I'll be right back with some appetizers. You two just sit and chat," Victoria said to the men before rushing off toward the kitchen. Michael and Nate stood for a moment, awkwardly smiling at one another. Finally, Michael gestured to the couch. "Please," he said, and Nate sat. Michael chose to sit on the armchair across from the couch. It was a good deal higher off the ground than the couch itself, and made it appear as though Michael was much taller than he actually was. "So," Michael said, still sizing up the younger man across from him, "it was good of you to help Victoria with her bags. I've tried to convince her to take my driver, but she's so stubborn." "Oh, it was no problem," Nate answered. Then, feeling bold, he added, "I like how independent Victoria is. She doesn't need to rely on anyone but herself." Michael smiled tightly at this comment. He opened his mouth to retort, but just then, the door to the apartment opened once again. "Mom, I'm home," Olivia called out from the foyer. "Olivia, we're in here," Michael called back. "Come say hello." "We?" Olivia asked as she made her way to the den. "Oh," she said when she saw Nate. He stood to greet her. "It's nice to see you again, Olivia," Nate said. Michael's face twitched hearing Nate address his daughter so casually. "Nice to see you too," Olivia said. She looked between her father and Nate, sensing the tension. Wanting to avoid the awkward situation as much as possible, Olivia started to back her way towards the kitchen. "I'm just gonna see if Mom needs any help," she explained, before scurrying off towards the safety of the kitchen. Victoria was already busy assembling a cheese plate and some glasses of wine for the men when Olivia entered the kitchen. Mom, do you know who's out there right now? Olivia asked her mother. Of course I know, Victoria said. I'm the one who invited him. Here, help me with the appetizers. Victoria handed Olivia a knife, but Olivia just stood there. Why is he here? Olivia asked, still trying to figure out the situation she had just encountered in the living room. Victoria turned to Olivia, starting to get exasperated. I ran into him after work and he offered to give me a ride home. It would have been rude not to invite him. I think it's a lot ruder to bring him home to enter a pissing contest with Dad, Olivia blurted out. I mean, come on, Mom. You just got Dad back and now you're inviting random suitors over? Olivia, Victoria snapped at her daughter. Nate is just a coworker and a good friend to this family, nothing more. I know that, and your father obviously knows that, so please, enough with these delusions. Now take this out to our guest. Victoria handed Olivia a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, then went back to prepping for dinner. Olivia stood there for a moment. Could my mom really be so naive? Olivia wondered. All those years ago, when I let people walk all over me, I thought it was my own fault. But maybe I inherited this trusting nature from her. Much of their dinner with Nate was awkwardly quiet. Victoria attempted to make some polite small talk, but Michael and Nate were too busy staring each other down to answer with more than a few gruff grunts. Even Polly, who usually took the opportunity to beg for some table scraps, lay silently at Olivia's feet. I can't believe my mom was naive enough to invite Nate here, Olivia thought, watching as her mother shifted uncomfortably in her seat. After dinner, Nate had tried to politely excuse himself, but Victoria had insisted he stay for dessert and coffee. As Victoria prepped coffee in the kitchen, Olivia sat in the living room with Nate and her father. So, how long have you been working with Confluence Technology? Michael finally asked Nate. Olivia let out a breath she had been holding all night. Thank goodness someone finally said something, she thought. I've been with the company quite some time, Nate answered, unsure of what Michael was trying to get at. Quite some time? Michael scoffed. What are you talking about here? 2 years, 3, 6, how long? Nate, feeling threatened by this line of interrogation, decides to use the opportunity to show off a bit. Not all of us are worried with length as you seem to be, Michael. Nate smiled coyly at him. The corner of Michael's mouth turned down and he tightened his grip on the arms of the chair he was sitting in. Why, that little... Olivia heard her father think, before shutting her mind off to his thoughts. She stood abruptly, unable to stand another minute of this. I have a lot of homework due tomorrow, so if you'll excuse me, I think I'm going to retire, she announced to the room, then hurried off before anyone could protest. Once Olivia left, the men sat in silence yet again. Coffee's ready, Victoria called out, as she entered with a tray of delicious-smelling coffee, cream, sugar, and a perfect matching set of cups. Nate stood when she entered the room, then made a show of looking at his watch. Thank you so much for your hospitality, Victoria, but I really should be leaving now. Victoria frowned. Please, at least stay for a few sips. This is a special blend from Jamaica. I just got the beans fresh this morning. Nate looked at Victoria, struggling to disappoint such a beautiful woman. But his glance then fell on Michael, still glowering at him from the imposing armchair, and he thought better of it. That sounds delicious, but I really must decline, Nate said. Next time, I promise. Nate gathered his things and headed for the door. Thank you for everything, Victoria. He glanced towards Michael, who made no effort to move from his seat. Boss, I'll see you tomorrow for that meeting, Nate said, unable to help himself. He knew referring to Michael as boss in such a cavalier tone would annoy him. Michael's eyes flashed with anger as Victoria turned to him, a confused look on her face. Boss, what's he talking about? At this, Michael stood, forcing a laugh to brush off the situation. Why don't I walk you out, Nate? Michael suggested, ushering Nate into the hallway. In front of the elevator, Michael dropped his fake smile and turned on the man. "What are you trying to do here?" Michael accused. Nate smiled, for real this time. It seemed there were secrets Michael was hiding from Victoria. "She doesn't know, does she?" Nate prodded. "Interesting that you would choose to keep such a big secret from your partner." Nate noticed Michael's face twitch ever so slightly. Could it be there were other things Michael Johnson was hiding? Nate thought to himself. After a night of being bullied by this man, Nate couldn't help but exact a small amount of revenge on his tormentor. "You and Victoria are together, no?" Nate asked, sensing he had picked up on a sore subject for Michael. "At least, that's how you always make it seem around the office." "My personal life is none of your business," Michael said through gritted teeth. Nate was having a little bit too much fun watching Michael squirm. It was so rare that someone in his position would get the opportunity to mess with someone so much higher up than himself. "Interesting," Nate said. "You know, Victoria rarely mentions you. The way she talks, it almost would seem as if she considers herself single." "What are you implying?" Michael asked, cocking an eyebrow. He had just about had enough of this guy tonight. "Do you actually think you have a chance with Victoria?" Michael sneered. This really pissed Nate off. He was sick of people underestimating him. He stepped closer to Michael, puffing out his chest. "I'm not giving up," he said, mustering as much confidence as possible. "Victoria is a gentle, kind woman, and she deserves to be with someone who treats her better than you." Nate practically spat the words out at Michael. Michael clenched his fist, but let his mouth curl up into a relaxed smile. He laughed. "You really think that your kindness will win out over years and years of history? Not to mention we share a child?" Just then, the elevator door opened, and Nate stepped on. Michael smiled to himself. He had clearly won this round. But just as the door was about to close, Nate held out his hand to stop it. "You forgot one crucial detail," Nate said, smirking at Michael. "That is?" Michael asked, letting his curiosity get the better of him. "You are still legally married to another woman," Nate said, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction, "while I am single and available." How could he know about Rachel? Michael thought. Could it be that Victoria told him? Are they really that close? Nate let the elevator door begin to close. "Don't underestimate me, Mr. Johnson." Nate winked at Michael just as the door closed in front of him, and the elevator began to make its descension. After his interaction with Nate, Michael needed to take a walk to clear his head. He didn't want to show his anger to Victoria, and knew it would be best to try to cool down before returning to the apartment. He sent Victoria a text that he had run out to bring back some ice cream for her and Olivia, hoping she wouldn't suspect that anything was wrong. As he walked down the dark, wet streets of the Upper West Side, a million thoughts ran through his head. He had been living in a sort of daze these last few months with Victoria. When he was with her, it was almost as if Rachel no longer existed. But the truth of the matter was that she did exist, and eventually he would have to deal with her. "If it weren't for my brother Bruno, I could be divorced by now," Michael thought to himself. He reached for his phone in his pocket, then hesitated. It had been a while since he had spoke to his brother, and he didn't know exactly where their relationship stood. But Bruno was his brother, no matter what happened. That had to mean something. Blood is thicker than water, after all, Michael thought, before pulling out his phone and dialing the number. "Hello, brother. I hear you've abandoned your family," Bruno said through the phone. This was just as Michael remembered his brother. No greeting, no asking how Michael was doing, or finding out why he called. He just got straight to the point. "Hello, Bruno. How are you?" Michael said, ignoring his brother's first remarks. "Oh, you know me," Bruno said. "The restaurants are fine. Paris bores me, the usual." Michael couldn't help but smirk at his brother's cavalier attitude towards what most would consider a pretty impressive life. Without missing a beat, Bruno continued. So, Pop says you moved out, left Rachel and Monica? Michael twinged slightly. He had no qualms about leaving Rachel, but he still had some guilt in his heart for leaving Monica. He was sorry she had gotten so mixed up in Rachel's devious ways. Listen, Bruno said, before Michael had a chance to respond. Relationships are tricky. I know you know me and Rachel crossed a line, but listen, it won't happen again. She's learned, I learned, we all make mistakes. But you and I are brothers, and we can't let our whole family suffer because of past mistakes. You have your kids and our relationships to think about. Come on, I know you're a level-headed guy, Michael. Michael let out a sigh of relief. Thanks, brother, Michael responded. He really hadn't been sure what Bruno's reaction was going to be. He was relieved that Bruno was being so supportive. That being said, Bruno added, and Michael held his breath. I'm worried about Dad. I can understand you were unhappy in your marriage, but Dad is old and he needs you. Bruno sighed. The entire Johnson family needs you. Michael felt the hair on the back of his neck prickle at the accusation. You're one to talk, Michael said defensively. You fled to Europe the first chance you got. Bruno stayed silent. He knew how he had acted in the past. He had a reputation for being impetuous, and Michael had carried the burdens of the Johnson family on more than one occasion. Michael, Bruno said, but he was cut off by his brother. I'm the CEO of the Johnson family's business, Michael interjected. A family business that, despite my best efforts, is on the precipice of destruction. Michael was heated. He was already in a bad mood before, thanks to that Nate guy. He didn't need a lecture from his baby brother. I should go, Michael said. I gotta get back. Bruno waited a moment, then sighed through the receiver. Okay, brother. Take care of yourself, he said, before hanging up the phone. Michael returned to the apartment feeling more morose than when he had left. The walk did nothing to lighten his mood, but now, coming back to the warm home Victoria had created, he felt some of the weight lift off his shoulders. On the way home, he had stopped at a little ice cream parlor he remembered Victoria used to love. He couldn't believe they were still in business all these years later, and he smiled now, imagining Victoria's smile when she saw the pint of lavender honey ice cream he had brought back for her. When he entered the apartment, he could hear Victoria singing in the kitchen. He walked over and stood in the doorway for a moment. He watched as she washed dishes and sang a familiar tune to herself. Polly lay at her feet, hoping for some bits of food to perhaps fall so that she could lap them up. This was the life Michael had always wanted. A warm home with a loving wife, a studious daughter who knew she was cared for, even a dog, which his own parents wouldn't allow him to have in their own home growing up. He quietly snuck up behind Victoria and snaked his arms around her waist. Is this your way of apologizing for speaking to your mother with such a sour tone, young lady? Victoria asked, assuming the arms belonged to Olivia. Michael smirked and pulled Victoria tighter against his body, taking in the sweet smell of her delicately perfumed hair. As she felt her body behind him, Victoria dropped the plate she was rinsing into the sink and it shattered. Michael, what are you doing? Victoria asked as she tried to wriggle free from his grasp, but he held her tighter. What has gotten into you? She asked, an air of levity to her voice now. It had been a while since she'd been held like this, and despite her better judgment, she found herself melting in Michael's arms. Marry me, Michael whispered in her ear. Victoria froze, her entire body tensing. She was at a complete loss of words. I'm going to divorce Rachel, Michael continued. I don't care what my family says. Michael snuggled into Victoria's neck. Say yes, he whispered into her neck, making Victoria shiver. Say yes, and I'll never let the Johnson family come between us again. Victoria couldn't believe what she had just heard. There she was in her small apartment kitchen, after a long and stressful day's work, washing dirty dishes in the sink, covered in suds, and her ex-husband, Michael Johnson, had just asked her to marry her again? Was this all because he had moved in so recently? They were just roommates as far as she was concerned. She felt dizzy all of a sudden, like she couldn't believe this was happening. Michael wasn't sure how to take this stunned silence at first. Hopefully, it was a good sign, he thought. Maybe she was so pleasantly surprised she had lost all words. Truthfully, Victoria had envisioned Michael might ask her to marry her someday. She had practiced what she would tell him in her mind over and over again. But this was so sudden, and not how she had pictured it would happen at all. In a panic, Victoria's mind had completely gone blank. Her prepared words were now nowhere to be found. Just at that moment, Michael wrapped his arms around Victoria's waist again, pulling her body into his. It wasn't until he leaned in, ready to kiss her, that she finally snapped out of it and reacted. She put her soapy hand out between their lips, stopping him. "Oh," said Michael, shocked and confused. He hadn't expected to kiss the greasy, foamy palm of her hand. He wiped the detergent and gunk off his lips, trying not to spit out the liquid in front of the woman he hoped would be his wife again. "What's the matter?" Michael pleaded. "Don't you want to remarry? Can't we go back to the way things were?" Victoria Park looked into Michael Johnson's eyes. She was all too familiar with those deep, handsome eyes. She had been with the owner of those eyes for many years in one way or another. Even long after their divorce, 18 years from now, she often saw those eyes in her dreams. And there they were, in front of her now, begging for her hand in marriage. Victoria smiled to herself, looking over the man she used to love so deeply. Despite her best efforts, she found herself moved, even after so many years of hurt. "Michael," Victoria looked for the right thing to say. "You know, I care for you very much." Michael hung on these words with bated breath, his heart full of passion. He had loved Victoria from the first day they met right up to now, and never had stopped. During this time, while he was married to another woman, he had to hide his deep love within his heart, thinking he had to let that part of himself go. Only right now at that moment did he realize that he had been lying to himself that whole time. "I've been such a fool," he thought. "So many wasted years. But this time will be different. No more hiding how I feel. I'm going to make things right." "I don't have a ring yet," Michael continued, "but we can pick one out together. Whatever you want, we'll get it." Victoria could tell Michael truly meant it. Even with a new wife and children, Michael had never stopped loving her from afar. Victoria took a deep breath in, washed off her hands in the sink, and took Michael by the hands. She was no longer flustered. She remembered the speech she had practiced so many times in the mirror, and slowly shook her head. "Michael, you're very sweet, but you and we're in the past," she said solemnly, rubbing his hands gently. Michael was dumbfounded, but resolute. "From the past to now, into the future, my love," Michael replied. "The past, it's just a word. It's just something we made up to represent time going by. That doesn't change how we feel about each other." "But it has changed how I feel." Victoria smiled sadly. "Michael, I'm happy with the life I'm living now. You left and I made my peace with that a long time ago. I have my job, a nice apartment, and most importantly, I have Olivia. That's all I need. That's enough for me, and I hope you can understand." I. Michael felt he was on the verge of tears. Had he really messed things up between them so much? "You'll always be part of my life in some way. We have a beautiful daughter, and it's been wonderful having you around the apartment. But I think we may need to leave it as co-parents and nothing more," Victoria said confidently. She had thought about this for a long time now, and she was more sure of it than ever. She hated to see Michael's hopes dashed like this, but she felt it was for the best. "We can't repeat the past," she continued. But I don't want to repeat the past, Michael rebutted. I want to build a new life, a new future with you. I love you for who you were, as well as who you've become. You make me want to be a better man. Victoria gently took Michael's face in her hands, lifting its head. You're a very good man, Michael. I'm not telling you this because I don't have love for you. I do. But there are so many different kinds of love. Love that changes and evolves as we grow older. I need to be able to move forward. I hope you can understand. Michael held his ex-wife's hand to his cheek, closing his eyes to savor this bittersweet moment. I'm so sorry, Victoria. I didn't mean to put you in an awkward position. Michael apologized. It's all right, she assured him. I'm glad you spoke your mind. Now we can both move on. It's much better looking forward than staying behind in the past. Michael looked Victoria in the eyes, then made a decision. Then continue walking forward. I will double my speed and catch up for you for the time I missed. I can't make up for lost time, but maybe I can make you see there is a future together. I will do my best to chase you, just keep walking forward and leave the rest to me. Victoria was stunned. Chase me, she thought. After 18 years, he's going to chase me? Like we're teenagers in love? Michael pulled Victoria into a warm embrace and then turned to leave. Good night, he said. He may not believe me right at this moment, but I promise I will make things right. From now on, Michael wouldn't think about anything else. In the past, he had let too many people control his life and his feelings. He had to consider his father, his brother's future, the family image, and all the while being the face of the Johnson family business. He had let himself be tugged and pulled from all angles, but it had caused him to forget who he really was, who he wanted to be. The only thing he needed to consider now was his chosen family and the people he loved. That was all that mattered. What was that just now? Victoria thought, alone in her kitchen. She knew she had done the right thing. But were the butterflies she was feeling in her stomach? No, she thought. I have to be strong. I have to keep looking forward. Olivia shouted into her pillow in her bedroom. She listened in on the entire conversation, as well as peering into her parents' thoughts to get a full picture of the situation. This must have been a nightmare. There she was, her plans bringing her parents back together so close to coming to fruition, and they were dashed just like that. Maybe they'll never get back together now, Olivia cried out. She knew her father meant it from the bottom of his heart when he said he never stopped loving her mother, but had he scared Victoria off? Was he being too crazy, passionate, and impulsive after all this time? Olivia thought her mother must have felt ambushed then and there. Polly sweetly nuzzled her snout next to Olivia's face, consoling her. Olivia laughed, giving her beloved pet belly rubs in response. You always know just what to do, Polly, said Olivia, cheering her up a little. Polly gleefully barked in response. You're right, girl, Olivia said. I shouldn't give up. 18 years is a long time to be apart. It's not going to happen all at once. They just need some more time is all. Just as Olivia began formulating a new plan to reunite her parents once and for all, there was a knock at her door. Can I come in? Her mother asked. Sure thing, Mom. Victoria opened the door, giving a meek smile, clearly something on her mind, and sat on the foot of Olivia's bed. Your father, Victoria began. Your father proposed to me tonight. Olivia feigned surprise as if she had not listened in the entire conversation. That's incredible, Mom. What did you say? I told him no. I think it's best we keep things how they are for right now. Olivia knew better than to argue with her mother at this moment, especially seeing how well that worked for her father a few moments ago. Liv, your father is only living with us temporarily, Victoria went on. When the time comes and he does eventually get his own place, Do you want to continue living with me, or would you rather stay with your father? Olivia had not expected this sort of question at all. The first time she had left to live with her mother, she was still in the womb. When she had lived with her father's mansion, it was so she could enact revenge on people who had hurt her in her past life. But now that they were all living under the same roof, Olivia didn't want it any other way. But Mom, isn't it fine just the way it is? Olivia sighed. Dad cares for the both of us, and it sounds like his proposal was very respectful. Victoria hadn't told her daughter about Michael pulling her closer and trying to kiss her. How could a mother say that to her daughter? Would she even understand? Olivia didn't have to read Victoria's mind to see the worry on her face. Mom, Olivia assured her, if you're certain it's what you both want, and Dad does want to move away, I'll understand. No matter what happens, I'll stay by your side. Victoria's heart soared when she heard this and gave Olivia a massive mama bear hug. But you know, Olivia choked, I'm a senior at Marshall High now. I'm not going to be around forever. I might get lonely all alone. Oh, I'll manage somehow, Victoria said. Olivia laughed. I'm not worried about you. It's Dad I'm concerned for. A man who has no one to take care of, no one to care for him. He's used to the wealthy life. I don't know if he's used to living by himself. Olivia glanced over at her mother, unsure if this was working. And on top of that, he has terrible stomach problems. What if he can't cook for himself and just orders takeout every day, working late nights at the office? He could make himself sick. Or worse, what would we do then? Victoria raised an eyebrow at her daughter and let out a laugh. He's a grown man. Might do him good to learn how to take care of himself for a change. Victoria kissed Olivia on the head and turned off her light before heading to her room. Sweet dreams, my love. Good night, Mom. Victoria shook her head, lightly laughing to herself. What a strange day. She scolded Michael in her head, thinking how ridiculous it seemed for a man his age to act like a lovesick pup. But as she lay in bed, replaying the events of the day, Victoria realized something Michael had said struck a chord with her. Try as she might, Victoria Park was unable to sleep. Rachel Johnson was having her morning coffee in the breakfast nook of the Johnson family mansion, stewing as usual. She grieved over her husband Michael leaving the large, illustrious home they had shared for almost 2 decades, all to live with his ex-wife Victoria in her small apartment. I'll get back at her if it's the last thing I do, Rachel sneered. I stole him from her once, and I will gladly do it again. He'll come crawling back in no time, just wait and see. Right at that exact moment, the phone rang. Who could that be so early in the morning? Rachel scoffed. Do they know what time it is? The phone rang and rang to Rachel's chagrin, echoing through the vast, empty Johnson Mansion hallways. Will somebody answer the damn phone? Rachel yelled to her staff. It was so hard to get good help these days. Finally, one of the servants took the line off the hook. Rachel couldn't make out what they were saying in the other room, but she detected a note of surprise in the tone of their voice. Right away, sir, said the servant. Soon after, there was a rapid knock at the doorway. Madam Johnson, the servant addressed Rachel. There's a telephone call for you from Mr. Johnson. Rachel cut the servant off before he could finish that thought. Michael? She chortled, bounding past the servant and into the hallway. Why didn't you say so? Get out of my way! She feverishly picked up the phone, bringing it to her ear, tears streaming down her face with joy. Michael, she said. Michael, my love, I didn't know when I'd hear from you again. Tell me you're coming back. Come home. I'm sorry, madam, spoke a dry voice. It was not Michael's voice on the other end of the line. Rachel's face immediately dropped to the floor. She had been so happy for a second, but now it felt like someone had dumped a bucket of cold ice water all over her. Ansel, Rachel said, recognizing that voice immediately. It was Michael's driver and personal assistant, Ansel Parr. "Is Michael there?" she continued. "It's important I speak with him immediately."
"He is not,"
Ansel replied.
"Sir asked me to inform you that some paperwork is being sent to the Johnson mansion and should arrive shortly. He wants you to look them over carefully."
Paperwork? Rachel was confused. What sort of paperwork?
"It's a divorce agreement, ma'am."
He answered without an ounce of emotion.
"Please read it over carefully and sign with your name at your earliest convenience. I will come by the mansion to retrieve the signed documents in 2 days' time."
Divorce agreement? Rachel stuttered. These words felt like a long, blunt needle poking straight through her heart. "Where is Michael? Put him on the phone. Surely there's some sort of misunderstanding. We can talk this over." Does he really detest me that much? Rachel thought. He can't even bring himself to tell me this himself or even in person?
"Mr. Johnson is terribly busy,"
said Ansel. In fact, he was sitting in Michael's office that very moment, watching as his employer looked over a copy of the divorce agreement. Michael grimaced. He really hated that it had to be done this way, but he knew the kind of woman Rachel was. If he had told her himself in person, she would have twisted his words and toyed with him till he called off the whole thing. He'd surely be trapped with her for another 18 years or worse. No, he thought, it has to be like this. Michael nodded to Ansel to continue on.
"Madam, the parcel should be arriving within the hour. Could you please read the agreement and sign your name when it's most convenient for you?"
Ansel pressed. "I won't sign it." Victoria stomped her foot. "You can't make me. He's my husband. And if he wants to leave me so bad, he can man up and tell me himself."
"If you insist,"
Ansel shrugged.
"If that's how you feel, then I'm afraid we will have no choice but to take you to court. If you would give me your lawyer's address, we will send them a letter and proceed from there."
Rachel inhaled sharply through her nostrils. He really is determined to divorce me, she thought. Her tears of sadness welling in her eyes were replaced with tears of hatred. Even if he doesn't care about me, what about his children? What about Monica? Rachel yelled. And how would this look for the entire Johnson family? Think of the scandal. This could hurt his entire family's social standing as well as their business. Rachel knew Michael well. Even if he doesn't care about our relationship anymore, he must care about the impact this would have on the Johnson family, she thought. She knew Michael as a responsible, caring man. Even if he went so far as to renounce the Johnson family, he would never sit by and watch as they fell into disgrace.
"I'm sorry that's how you feel, madam,"
Ansel replied coldly. The unfeeling tone in his voice caused Rachel to snap. He wouldn't dare publicly sue me for divorce. The Johnson family, our family, is the leading food and beverage distributor in New York City. A scandal like this would be in front-page news. If something like that broke out, he'd be ruined, I'd be ruined. The whole family would be a laughingstock. Michael won't do it, and I will not allow for it. Rachel gripped the phone receiver tightly. She would never divorce, even if it meant dragging Michael through the mud behind her. She would die as his wife. She had given up and done too much in her life for Michael to let it all go to waste now. Nothing he could say would make her give up. No one could take him away from her. We'll see what your father has to say about this, Rachel squealed, slamming the phone on the receiver. At the same time, in the chairman's office of the Johnson family's Manhattan headquarters, in a bustling area of the city, Michael's father, Jack Johnson, slammed a file on his desk with anger. Is Pete Pell insane? Jack groaned, trying to get a deal through before the end of the day. He really is asking for an exorbitant price. The Pell family has always been despicable. His son, Bruno, spoke to him over a Zoom call. That's what happens when you do business with a family of cutthroats. Jack said angrily. He was partially upset because of the situation he was in with the Pells, but mostly because his son Michael should have been the one dealing with this. Michael had been a good, obedient son for his whole life. Now, suddenly, he was hit with the rebellious streak in his middle age, making Jack extremely unhappy. "Dad, how's the situation in New York City? Anything I should worry about?" Bruno asked. "I'm fine," Jack nodded. Although he was old, he could still control his temper. He didn't want to worry his son Bruno more than he had to. "How are you and Edward?" Jack added. "We're pretty all right," Bruno said, laughing dryly. In reality, Bruno had noticed that Edward, Michael's son, was being ostracized, which made him feel sad. What made him feel worse was Edward was not actually his nephew. In reality, he was his own son, not Michael's at all. He knew telling the boy could ruin his life further, so Bruno monitored the boy's life silently from a distance. Bruno was afraid of the sort of scandal that would arise if he told the boy as well. It could ruin the Johnson family name. But worse, it could ruin his relationship with his brother Michael. How would he ever be able to trust him again after years of secrecy? "Nothing to report on this end," Bruno covered. "We're all peachy keen." Good. I'm glad to hear you're both doing all right." "Well, I'm sorry to cut our little chat short, son. I have a meeting I have to make," Jack grumbled, looking at the time. His days had become so packed since Michael left the company. "All right, Dad," Bruno replied. "And Dad, take care of yourself. The weather's been getting colder up there." "Don't you worry about your old man," chuckled Jack. "I'm made of tougher stuff." After they said their goodbyes, Jack ended the video call and his secretary came in to escort him to the meeting. "Ugh," Jack sighed, showing visible displeasure. Usually, this sort of meeting didn't require his presence. This was another thing Michael usually handled for him. Now his son had run off to find himself, leaving Jack personally responsible. It felt like all his responsibilities were piling up around him. As soon as Jack sat down, the meeting began. It was mostly focused on the company's plans for the upcoming 2 quarters, as well as a few special holiday events. Jack was bored out of his mind and felt much of this could have been debriefed in an email or company newsletter. 2 large projects drew Jack's attention. "Who's in charge of these 2? Jack asked the room. After some silence, an employee spoke up. "The CEO is personally in charge of them." This year, the Johnson family business had suffered a loss in sales. It seemed like some accounts were not yielding as much profit as they had in previous years. In order to make up for the loss as soon as possible, Michael had to personally turn things around and handle this himself. Jack Johnson frowned. "What happened after he left? Who was put in charge?" "Ansel Parr took over, sir," the man replied. "Then let Mr. Parr continue," said Jack. "But," after hesitating a while, the man continued, "Ansel Parr no longer works here. He quit." "He what?" Jack couldn't believe it. They ran the leading food and beverage company in New York City. Where would Ansel possibly go? "I heard that Ansel is currently working at an online tech company." The man paused for a moment and added, "He followed our CEO there." Jack Johnson raised his eyebrows at this, silently seething. It was one thing for his son Michael to leave the company, but now he was poaching people. How could he do that to his own flesh and blood? The meeting room was so silent you could hear a pin drop. They were simply pencil pushers who worked for this man. What right did they have to speak up while he looked so upset? The rest of the meeting continued on, albeit slowly and unpleasantly. Jack didn't hear a single word of it. He was too busy cursing Michael for treating him this way and causing all this trouble. It wasn't till later in the afternoon that Jack Johnson issued an order. He was going to get Michael back in the fold of the Johnson family, even if it killed him. Right after school let out, Olivia made her way to the real estate agency she had used to previously help her mother find an apartment. Victoria had told Olivia she wanted to find a new place, away from Michael, to have her own space again, and she seemed adamant, so Olivia didn't push back too hard. "It's a shame my mother has to leave," Olivia thought to herself as she approached the agency. That apartment was so perfect for her. But I suppose it now has too many associations with Dad for her to ever feel comfortable there again. Olivia sighed as she made her way into the offices. Olivia was greeted by an eager real estate agent the second she walked into the office. "Hello there, young miss," the man said to her, his voice oozing with as much charm as he could muster. "How can I help you today?" Right away, Olivia could tell she did not like the energy of this man. Right after school let out, Olivia made her way to the real estate agency she had used to previously help her mother find an apartment. Victoria had told Olivia she wanted to find a new place, away from Michael, to have her own space again, and she seemed adamant, so Olivia didn't push back too hard. "It's a shame my mother has to leave," Olivia thought to herself as she approached the agency. That apartment was so perfect for her. But I suppose it now has too many associations with Dad for her to ever feel comfortable there again. Olivia sighed as she made her way into the offices. Olivia was greeted by an eager real estate agent the second she walked into the office. "Hello there, young miss," the man said to her, his voice oozing with as much charm as he could muster. "How can I help you today?" Right away, Olivia could tell she did not like the energy of this man. He felt way too eager to sell. If Olivia wanted the right apartment, she needed someone who was going to understand that and take their time with her. "Is there someone else I can work with, perhaps?" Olivia suggested, trying to keep her tone polite. The man tried not to show his annoyance, instead keeping a smile plastered to his face. "I'm sure I can help you with whatever it is you need. Let's get started. First, what is your name and budget?" Olivia was put off by how pushy the man was, but she was also desperate to find a new place for Victoria. She would do anything to make her mother happy. "My name is Olivia Johnson," Olivia answered reluctantly. Just then, a smartly dressed woman popped her head out from one of the nearby office rooms. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop," the woman said. "But did you say your name is Olivia Johnson?" The woman stepped out of her office and looked at Olivia for a moment. "Didn't I help you find an apartment for you and your mother not too long ago?" Olivia recognized the woman immediately. It had been the same agent she used last time. Olivia smiled. "Yes, you did. Unfortunately, I'm in the market for an apartment again." The man held a hand up to silence his coworker before she could say anything else. "Don't worry, Olivia and I are already working together to find the perfect place," the man said, annoying Olivia even further. "Actually," Olivia said, holding her hand up to the man just as he had done to his female coworker, "I would prefer to work with someone who is already familiar with my tastes." And with that, Olivia walked straight over to the woman, still standing in her office doorway. "I hope that's all right," Olivia asked the woman, who smiled in return. She was impressed by the moxie of this teenage girl. "More than all right," the woman exclaimed. "In fact, I just got a hold of some new places I think you're really going to love," she said as she ushered Olivia into her office. She made sure to close the door with a sharp slam in her male coworker's face. The real estate agent wasted no time showing Olivia all of the finest properties available in the tri-state area. There was one in particular that Olivia felt stuck on. It was a beautiful pre-war apartment in the West Village, with a doorman and a terrace large enough for gardening. "It is a bit further from school," Olivia worried to herself. "But then again, I have only 1 year left at Marshall. And who knows, maybe next year I'll end up at NYU with Chris." Olivia shook her head, trying to erase thoughts of Chris from her mind. She wouldn't let him influence such a large decision as to which college she would go to. "Oh, do you not like the apartment?" the real estate agent asked, having seen Olivia shake her head. No, it's not that. The apartment is beautiful," Olivia said. But the real estate agent could tell her heart was not completely sold. "Hold on a moment," the woman said. She stood up and walked to the other side of her office, then returned with the file. She went through the file until she found what she was looking for. Okay, she said. This might be a long shot, but could this be something you're interested in? She handed Olivia a glossy sheet of paper with gorgeous photos of a spacious apartment. Olivia looked it over carefully. Then she saw the address, and her eyes lit up, a smile curling at the corners of her mouth. I love it, Olivia exclaimed. When can I move in? The real estate agent beamed at Olivia. That's fantastic. The landlord is in Europe for the season, so I have the key here in the office. You could move in as soon as we sign the papers. Olivia smiled to herself. This was all working out better than she could have even imagined. Great! Where do I sign? Olivia asked enthusiastically. The woman's face fell slightly. Oh, she said, a slight embarrassment in her voice. It's just that we don't allow minors to sign leases. Of course. Why hadn't Olivia thought of that? The last time she looked for an apartment, her mother had come with her to view the place before they committed to the lease. Right, of course, Olivia said, trying to hide her disappointment. How late are you open? I can return with my mother later this evening. Great, the woman said. I can personally stay later. I'd be so happy to have such a lovely mother and daughter live on this property. After leaving the agency, Olivia practically ran all the way home. She was so giddy. When she got into the apartment, she was lucky enough to find that Michael was not home yet. She rushed into the living room where her mom was reading on the couch with Polly. Mom, Olivia said, startling her mother and exciting Polly so much that she let out a single bark. I found it. I found the perfect place. Already? Victoria said, already giving in to her daughter's infectious enthusiasm. Yep, Olivia said proudly. We just need to return to the office before closing so that you can sign all the papers, and then we can move in as soon as we want. Victoria smiled, conflicted about leaving the apartment Olivia had originally so lovingly picked out for her. Olivia saw the look on her mother's face and couldn't help but read what was going through her head. It will be hard to leave this place, Olivia heard her mother think, but it's best for both Olivia and myself if I have space from Michael. I want him to be a good father to Olivia, and I won't let my relationship with him get in the way of that again. Olivia smiled warmly to herself. Her mother was such a kind and thoughtful person. She was glad she could do this small thing for her. After we sign the papers and pack up the apartment, let's have dinner at that French bistro you love so much, Olivia suggested. It's my treat, she added, her heart swelling. As soon as they finished signing the papers, Victoria and Olivia hurried back to the apartment to start packing their belongings. Will you at least tell me the neighborhood our new home is in? Victoria said, teasing Olivia. She thought it was sweet that her daughter wanted to keep the location of the apartment a surprise. Olivia had gone as far as to have the real estate agent cover the address on all the papers so that Victoria wouldn't know where they were moving until they arrived. Trust me, you're gonna love it, Olivia said. Victoria did trust her daughter. After all, she had found this wonderful apartment in a neighborhood Victoria could have only dreamed of. All right, then I suppose it's up to you to organize a moving company, Victoria said to Olivia. Olivia just smirked. No need, she responded. We can do it ourselves. Victoria stopped packing and turned to her daughter. What do you mean we can do it ourselves? Look at all these boxes, Olivia. How can two women move all this through an entire city? Relax, will you? Olivia grinned mischievously. It was time to tell her. We're just moving everything up one floor. A jolt went through Victoria's entire body. One floor up? She thought to herself. Did Olivia really have the nerve to rent the apartment directly above the one Michael would be living in? Although there were a million thoughts racing through Victoria's head, she was too stunned to speak. Sensing her mother's worry, Olivia took Victoria's hand in her own. Mom, you love this place, and you love this neighborhood. You shouldn't have to suffer just because my father's acting like a man-child, Olivia reasoned with Victoria. She then stood, helping Victoria to her feet as well. Come on. Olivia continued. Let's just go upstairs and take a look. What's the harm? Olivia picked up a box and made her way to the door, followed by Polly, happy to go on a small adventure in the building. Victoria hesitated a moment, then sighed. Perhaps her daughter was right. She deserved to live in the manner to which she had grown accustomed. She picked up a box herself and followed Olivia and the dog out into the hallway to wait for the elevator. Olivia and Victoria spent the next few hours obsessively moving boxes and furniture, with Polly giving encouraging yips along the way. Although their bodies were exhausted from the effort, the adrenaline kept them moving until the final item of theirs was cleared from their original apartment and moved upstairs to its doppelganger. Victoria had to admit, her daughter had chosen well. The upstairs apartment was identical in floor plan, but the view was much better. It was just high enough that it cleared the roof of the building across the way, leaving a perfect view of Central Park. Victoria gazed out the window and smiled to herself. Okay, that's everything, Olivia announced as she looked around, satisfied with their effort. Now let's go eat. I'm starved. The mother and daughter pair laughed together, arms linked, as they exited the elevator into the building's lobby. They were so giddy from the day's events, they almost bumped straight into Michael, just coming home from work. Well, if it isn't my two favorite ladies. Michael smiled genuinely, oblivious to the fact that his presence was unwelcome. Where are you heading? He asked Victoria, but she avoided his gaze. We were just going to get some dinner at the French place Mom loves, Olivia answered, unable to stand the awkwardness. Great, I'll join you, Michael said, completely unaware of the chill Victoria was radiating. Fine, Victoria said, then strode out of the lobby onto the street. By the time they arrived at the restaurant, all of the tables were full, and the only seats that were available were at the bar. Normally, Victoria hated sitting at the bar. She didn't like how close to the window it was, nor how the draft hit you every time someone entered the front door of the restaurant. But tonight she was so hungry she didn't care. Besides, Olivia heard her mother think, with Michael here, his dinner is already ruined. How could it get any worse? Olivia swallowed. She hated that their exciting day was now tainted by her father's presence. As the maitre d' escorted them to their bar seats, Victoria tried to secure a seat away from Michael, but he swooped in, pulling a chair out for her. Oh no, Olivia thought. I can't let him annoy Mom so much that she refuses to even be in the same building. I have to do something. Olivia concentrated her efforts on Michael's shoelace, manipulating it with her powers just enough that it would come undone, tripping him but not hurting him. She focused her energy, and just as Michael was about to take a seat next to Victoria, he fumbled, pulling the chair out to balance himself. Oh, thanks, Dad, Olivia said, as she sat in the chair Michael had clearly intended for himself. Much better if I sit between them, Olivia thought. Hopefully, this way, I can provide a buffer. As the dinner went on, the three gorged themselves on oysters and steak fries. The tension between Victoria and Michael lessened the fuller their bellies got, and Olivia started to feel at ease sitting between her two parents. A waiter came by and cleared their dishes, dropping dessert menus in their place. While Olivia and Victoria were busy studying the menu, Michael pulled a small turquoise jewelry box from his briefcase. The moment Olivia saw it, her heart stopped. Victoria. I can't accept this, she said, slamming the box shut and shoving it in Michael's direction. Michael frowned. I had it designed just for you, he said, raising an eyebrow at her. They won't let me return it. If you give it back to me, I'll have to just throw it away. Michael had underestimated Victoria. She clearly couldn't be bought with fancy jewelry and name brands. But if there was one thing Michael did know about the woman sitting across from him, it was that she hated unnecessary waste. If she thought he would dispose of the bracelet, she would have to accept it. Fine, Victoria huffed. I'll keep it, but please don't buy me anything else. Michael grinned, feeling he won a small but sure victory. Let me help you put it on, he said, reaching across Olivia once again to slip the delicate bracelet onto Victoria's equally delicate wrist. Outside the restaurant, passerbys bustled down the street, ready to get home after a long day. But one person happened to stop dead in their tracks when they recognized the family sitting in the French restaurant. Monica gasped as she stood there on the street. She couldn't believe her eyes. Rachel had met her in the city that evening to do some shopping. The last thing either of them expected to see was Michael with that dirty tramp, and Olivia sitting between them, as if they were a happy family with no sordid past. It made Monica sick. "Let's go, Mommy, I'm tired," Monica told Rachel, trying to spare it from this view she knew would only hurt Rachel. But it was too late. Rachel stood frozen in place, watching Michael slip one of the most beautiful pieces of jewelry she had ever seen onto Victoria's wrist. Michael had never given her anything nearly as beautiful as this. Rachel seethed as she watched the scene unfolding in front of her. Then, without skipping a beat, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number, holding the phone to her ear. "Hello, it's me. I need your help." Rachel gazed back in at the restaurant, her eyes narrowing. "I need to find out everything you can about someone, whatever the cost." Olivia, Michael, and Victoria ate their desserts in silence. After Michael had presented Victoria with such a lavish gift, despite her insistence against it, there was little left to say. Olivia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She knew they would have to tell Michael that they had moved out sooner rather than later. She just had to find the right moment. But as the night wore on, the right moment never seemed to come. And suddenly, the three of them found themselves back in the lobby of their building. Michael still clueless about the change in their residences. Michael was about to press the elevator button when Olivia spoke up. "Wait, Dad," she said, taking a deep breath before she continued. "There's something we need to tell you." "Oh?" Michael turned toward his daughter and Victoria, eyebrows raised in confusion. "We moved out," Victoria said, ready to rip off the Band-Aid. Michael balked at the news. He couldn't believe they would pull the rug out from under him like this. Seeing her father's distress, Olivia added, "Well, not out. We'll still be in the building." Michael shook his head, as if that would help the jumble of words he was now trying to understand. "Hold on," he said. "What are you saying?" Victoria stepped forward. She was the reason they had to move. It was her responsibility to explain. "Michael," she said, her voice taking on a tone of empathy now. "After last night, I just don't think it's healthy for the two of us to be in the same apartment together." "What do you mean?" Michael said, starting to feel agitated by what little involvement he had in the situation. "It's not fair to Olivia, and it's not fair to me if we stay," Victoria continued. Olivia looked between her parents and couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. She had wanted so badly to repair the relationship between the two, but she knew, the way her father had acted in these last few days, that would no longer be possible. "Don't worry, Dad," Olivia reassured her father. "We can still see each other. And you can borrow Polly anytime you get lonely." Victoria pressed the elevator button, and the door opened almost immediately. The two women stepped past Michael and onto the elevator. "Have a good night, Michael," Victoria said as the doors closed, leaving Michael standing in the lobby, completely dumbfounded. Inside the elevator, Olivia watched Victoria's face. She could tell that Victoria was experiencing a mix of complicated emotions. "Mom," Olivia said, "can I ask you something?" "Huh?" Victoria said, obviously distracted by her own thoughts. "Why are you so cold to Dad? Do you really think he deserves it?" Olivia pressed. She was always on her mother's side, but seeing her father in the lobby just now, he looked so pitiful. Victoria sighed. "I have to be tough with your father. I refuse to be intimidated by that man any longer." "You're scared of Dad?" Olivia asked, surprised. "No, not scared." Victoria scoffed. It's just that, Michael, your father, he can be very persuasive. Victoria looked off into the distance. It's like I lose myself when I'm with him. He fills my head and I can't think straight anymore. A sort of dreamy haze filled her eyes as she reminisced. Then the elevator pinged with the floor, and the doors opened, snapping herself out of her stupor. Before exiting, Victoria turned to Olivia. Whatever you do, don't ever let a man control you, Olivia, no matter how charming he may be. Almost immediately, Olivia's thoughts went to Chris. She hated to admit it to herself, but that boy had a hold over her. Then slowly, memories of her ex-fiancé, Mark DeLillo, crept into her mind, and she shuddered. Don't worry, Mom, Olivia said resolutely. I won't. Back inside the apartment, Victoria's mood lightened a bit. The energy in their new apartment was much better than the one they were sharing with Michael, and it felt like a weight had been lifted. So, speaking of men, Victoria pried, how is that Chris Jones doing? Olivia blushed at the mention of his name. How should I know? Olivia said, trying not to give herself away. After the talk they had just had in the elevator, Olivia didn't want to show any sort of weakness towards a guy. But Victoria knew her daughter, and she could already tell that Olivia had feelings for this boy. So, you haven't spoken to him recently? Victoria pressed. She hoped her daughter wouldn't experience the same sort of heartache she had in her youth. He's busy with college and I'm busy with my schoolwork, Olivia said, brushing her mother off. We don't have time to talk these days. All right, Victoria said. But it's okay if you ever want to talk to me about, matters of the heart and stuff. That's what I'm here for. At this, Olivia's entire face turned red. She had never talked to her mom about her love interests in her past life, and she didn't plan to in this one. You know what? Olivia said quickly, trying to change the subject. I think I left Polly's dog bowl downstairs. I'm gonna run go get it. At the thought of Olivia going down to see Michael, Victoria's mood shifted once again. All right, but don't be long, Victoria said. You still have homework to do. Olivia nodded to her mother, then slipped out of the apartment. Olivia stepped onto the elevator and hesitated. Her finger hovered over the button. Then she pressed her father's floor. As Olivia paced back and forth, she let out an exasperated sigh and fished into her pocket for her phone. When the elevator doors opened on her dad's floor, she dialed a number as she walked down the hallway, then held the phone to her ear. After a few rings, a man's voice answered.
Hello?
The voice said, and Olivia immediately hung up. What am I doing? She said out loud to herself. This kind of behavior was so not her. Just as she was about to turn back, her phone rang. She swallowed, trying to make a decision, then answered the phone. Hello? She said, putting on an air of confusion.
Hello, Miss Johnson. I believe you tried to call me and then hung up.
Chris Jones teased through the phone.
Could it be that perhaps you missed me?
Olivia bit her lip, embarrassed that she was caught. What? She said, feigning ignorance. Well, I didn't call you, she insisted. It must have been a butt dial.
Well, then your butt must miss me.
Chris chuckled. The sound of his laughter made Olivia's whole body warm, and she had to bite the inside of her cheek to keep from smiling like an idiot. That doesn't even make sense, and it's not funny, Olivia retorted.
I liked it,
Chris answered.
So, what were you calling about?
I told you I didn't call you, Olivia insisted, even though she knew Chris would never believe her. But I guess since we're talking, Olivia caved, I might as well ask how you're doing. Chris let out a long breath.
I'm doing okay,
he said. It was moments like these that Olivia wished her powers would extend time and distance. She knew Chris didn't sound okay. If he were in the same room, she could read his mind to know what was going on with him. But the limitations of her abilities meant she would just have to find out the old-fashioned way. Chris, she said. Come on, what's really going on? Chris hesitated a moment. He didn't want to admit to Olivia that NYU was harder than he thought. He didn't want her to see him as someone weak.
I'm just really tired,
Chris answered.
I've been cramming for an exam and haven't been sleeping much.
I'm sure you'll ace it, Olivia said. If she could see Chris through the phone, she would know he winced at this, knowing very well he had no chance of acing anything anytime soon.
I'm just a boring old man now,
Chris joked, trying to lighten the mood.
Tell me about you. How's Marshall?
Well, actually, we have 2 new transfer students in class, Olivia shared. The Pell twins, Cameron and Camilla. Do you know them?
I know of them. Everyone does. Their family's wealthy, so I've definitely heard of them before.
Chris answered. His voice had an alertness to it all of a sudden.
That's quite the coincidence that they transferred to your class, isn't it? What are you implying?
Olivia stopped walking. She already had a bad feeling about these Pells. If Chris was wary too, that was a bad sign.
Just that bad luck seems to follow you.
Chris said. You have no idea, Olivia thought to herself, remembering the events of her past life. Compared to that version of her life, this one felt like a fairy tale. And you've managed to make a lot of enemies among the 7 families in a very short amount of time. Chris continued. I've made a lot of friends, too. Olivia countered.
I know you have.
Chris said quickly, not wanting to offend her.
I just think you should be careful. Keep your distance from the twins.
I will, Olivia promised. She was already planning to stay as far away as possible from them. So, Olivia said bashfully, my gaming group is meeting up for a picnic in Central Park tomorrow. Olivia swallowed and shut her eyes before asking, Would you want to come? There was a long pause on the other end, and Olivia could feel her heart beating in her chest. I would love to, Chris finally answered, and Olivia opened her eyes. But I can't. Olivia's face fell. That's fine, she clipped, doing nothing to hide the embarrassment from her voice. She started walking quickly towards her father's apartment.
Olivia,
Chris said, but she interrupted. No, really, I don't care. I just thought I'd be nice and invite you, but it doesn't matter to me. Olivia rambled uncontrollably.
Olivia, stop,
Chris said, and Olivia stopped moving completely, as if Chris could actually see her.
I want to come tomorrow. I want to see you and spend time with you and your friends.
Chris continued.
But if I do that, I'm going to have to pull another all-nighter studying. And if I lose more sleep, I might die of exhaustion.
Please don't do that, Olivia said sweetly. On the other end of the line, Chris smiled at Olivia's concern. If you died, I'd lose one of my most important allies. Olivia continued in a mocking tone. Chris's smile fell. Is that really how she felt? That the 2 of them were just allies in a transactional relationship? Every time Chris thought Olivia might have real feelings for him, she'd go and say something like that, leaving him more confused than ever.
Worse than that, if I died, that would make you a widow,
Chris teased, testing Olivia. Olivia smirked to herself. She hated how much she loved when Chris flirted like this. You have to be married to be widowed, Olivia retorted, and even our engagement is fake. Chris tutted into the phone.
You know what your problem is? You take life too seriously.
Olivia considered this. She had come back to this life with a mission, a sole purpose. Of course she had to take it seriously. But maybe it was good for her to have someone like Chris to lighten things up occasionally. Chris's phone beeped with another call. He checked the screen and saw Sven's name flash across it.
Hey, I gotta go,
Chris said reluctantly. Okay then, bye, Olivia said, not wanting to be the last one to hang up.
Wait,
Chris added before she could disconnect.
I want you to know I really miss you.
Olivia froze as goosebumps prickled up all over her skin. Why did this guy have to have such an effect on her? That is good to know, Olivia said because she didn't know what else to say. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she felt stupid. No, she thought, too cold. He was so vulnerable just now. That feels callous. What else am I supposed to say? Before Chris could say anything else, Liv managed to say, "Why don't we talk more about this when we're, both less, busy? Or like right before bed or in person? Or any time but right now?" she thought. She shook her head. Words were just streaming out. This is pathetic, she thought. In her past life, she had lived into her 20s, been murdered and resurrected. And this was what was tripping her up. Being a teenager was inescapable, even if her soul felt older, apparently.
Got it. Good night, Olivia,
Chris said, his words short. Chris quickly hung up before Olivia could say anything else. She felt bad. She wanted to tell him that she wasn't rejecting him. She just needed a minute to process things. But he was gone now. Olivia lay back on her bed, a storm of confusion raging inside her. She couldn't believe how much she liked Chris, how easy it was to talk to him sometimes, and yet how difficult it was to deal with these feelings along with everything else. She sighed and muttered to herself, "This is going to be way more complicated than I thought." Olivia turned her phone off, hoping that if she couldn't look at it, she wouldn't think about Chris. She quickly made her way to her father's apartment, and she felt sorry for Michael as soon as she entered and saw him moping around the living room. Ever since Victoria decided that they should move out, Olivia could sense her father was more deflated. So to try and cheer him up, Liv decided to spend the night at Michael's. She quickly told her mother of her plans, explained her reasoning so Victoria understood, and then left Polly behind to keep her mom company as she headed back to his apartment. When she got back to her dad's place, Olivia decided to head to her dad's office, where he had holed himself up. After a few minutes, she took a deep breath and knocked on the door. When Michael opened the door, he seemed hopeful but a bit disappointed when he saw it was Olivia again. She read his thoughts and could see he had hoped it was Victoria who had arrived. "Come in," he said, a trace of sorrow in his voice. Olivia teased, "Were you hoping it was Mom?" Michael smiled awkwardly and replied, "Don't tease your old man." Olivia took careful steps into the office. "How are you holding up after, stuff with Mom?" Michael sighed wearily. "I can't stop thinking about it, or her. I just feel awful. I even had Ansel get divorce paperwork drawn up just to show her I want to make things right with your mom. I know I made mistakes in the past, but I'm different now." "Dad, you're just too impulsive." Olivia sighed as she made herself comfortable in the office. "It's not like you don't realize that. It's been so long since the divorce. Mom and I leaned on each other when you weren't there. I get how she feels. From her point of view, you were the root cause of the divorce. You owe her more than an apology, and basically a surprise proposal, that's for sure." Michael hung his head, acknowledging the truth in her words. He deeply regretted the pain he had caused and was determined to make amends. "You've left quite a scar on Mom," Olivia continued, her words causing Michael to squirm. "She's terrified of being hurt again because of you. She hasn't dated anyone in decades. And honestly, seeing you like this now is like dealing with a lovesick teenager. You need to grow up." As she spoke, Olivia's thoughts veered to Chris. Ugh, he was so young, but her heart skipped a beat at the thought of him. Watching her father's romantic blunders, Olivia pondered whether age truly mattered in matters of the heart. Olivia shook her head and quickly scolded herself for such thoughts. "Come on, Olivia, get it together." "Olivia?" Michael began, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "I need you to understand something. When I was in college, I was incredibly shy." Olivia raised an eyebrow, intrigued by this revelation. "Shy? You?" Michael nodded, his eyes reflecting the memories of his youth. Yes, it's true. I was so shy that I never even held hands with a girl back then. It wasn't until I met your mother that I found a girl that I could just talk to. She made me feel comfortable. I didn't know it then, but that was the first time I felt love. But back then, love wasn't a factor with an arranged marriage. Michael confessed, his embarrassment evident. No way, Olivia said, her eyes studying Michael's expression. You're really innocent, aren't you? Michael coughed awkwardly, his cheeks flushing. Well, I suppose you could say that. Dad, Olivia exclaimed, her eyes shining. Maybe I could help you win Mom back. Michael looked at Olivia with doubt in his eyes. I don't even know where to start. Olivia went on. That's where I come in. I've got some awesome ideas to help you impress Mom. First, how about taking her to that Italian restaurant she used to love? You know, the one with the delicious pasta and romantic vibes? Michael nodded. That's a great idea, but it was evident something was on Michael's mind that he didn't know how to say. Olivia, Michael hesitated for a moment. What do you think of Nate? Nate? Olivia's eyes turned and she said, He's pretty cool, a handsome guy, and I think people find him charming. 3 compliments in a row made Michael a bit uneasy. And what does your mom think of him? Michael asked. Olivia smiled. She was not clueless. She could see that her father was concerned about Nate and Victoria. Michael asked nervously, Does Victoria... Michael was so embarrassed he couldn't find the words. When comparing me to Nate, who do you think, Seeing Michael struggle, Olivia said, Dad, let me tell you this. You and Nate are both great men. But ultimately, it depends on Mom's feelings. Of course, I support you, or else I wouldn't have put in so much effort. Yeah, Michael nodded affirmatively. But, Olivia rolled her eyes and said, You still have to try to win her over. Wine and dine her, make her feel special, win her heart. Of course. Michael nodded firmly. He was determined to show Victoria his feelings. Dad, let's talk about this later. Olivia tried to hide her excitement. She couldn't let Michael see that she wanted her parents to get back together. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I'll meet you at the office. Okay, Michael nodded. I'll make sure I don't have any meetings so we can talk about more date ideas for your mom. Okay, Olivia nodded. Father and daughter continued their conversation. He shared more stories about his college days, and Olivia listened, surprised by her father's innocence, as she tried to push thoughts of Chris out of her mind. The next day, Olivia was excited to brainstorm some cool date ideas to help her dad win her mom's heart back. Hey, Dad, don't forget the little stuff, Olivia told him. Compliments, chivalry, make her feel like she's the queen of the world. A sly grin crept onto Michael's face. You're absolutely right, Liv. Anything else, love guru? Olivia's eyes lit up with more ideas. How about a picnic in the park, like back in the day? Grab her favorite sandwiches, fruits, and a cozy blanket. It's simple, but super romantic. Michael nodded in agreement. That's brilliant. You should start your own dating advice blog. Olivia wasn't done yet. Or how about recreating your first date? Take her to that cute coffee shop where you guys first met. It'll bring back those awesome memories. With a mischievous grin, Olivia added, Oh, and don't forget the flowers. Mom loves flowers, Dad. Surprise her with a beautiful bouquet and you'll totally win her over. Michael chuckled, touched by his daughter's enthusiasm. You're probably right, Liv. Flowers are always a surefire move. Olivia couldn't help but smile, feeling hopeful for her parents. Dad, just remember to be patient and genuine. Love takes time, but I know you've got this. In a swanky New York City penthouse with a sweeping view of the entire city, Bjorn Jorgensen surveyed the skyline with a touch of disdain. New York just couldn't hold a candle to his beloved London. On lonely nights like this, Bjorn wished he could go back home. Suddenly, the phone rang. causing Bjorn to answer with caution. "Hello?"
Bjorn?
A soft, mysterious voice on the other end said. "Madam." Bjorn's expression immediately shifted.
How's New York treating you?
The woman asked. "Not much excitement here," Bjorn replied, leaning in. "Chris is at NYU, and my sources say he's always in class or at the library. They think he's a genius, but I think he's just a bookworm. We're keeping tabs on him, trying to make sure that these library visits are only school-related." "But why should I stop following Chris?" Bjorn questioned.
I believe there are bigger moves at play, and Chris is just a small piece.
The woman hinted. Bjorn grew more agitated. "Then why am I tracking him? What's my role here?"
All will become clear in time.
The woman replied mysteriously. "Does Wyatt know about this?" Bjorn probed.
Some things are best kept from Wyatt.
The woman hesitated.
We've had our doubts about him. His allegiances aren't crystal clear.
Bjorn pressed further on edge. "What does that mean?" The woman changed the topic.
Have you crossed paths with Olivia?
Bjorn pressed further on edge. "What does that mean?" It's clear the woman won't give Bjorn an answer about Wyatt. "Olivia, yes, I've seen her." Bjorn grimaced. "I rescued her and her dog, but I don't understand why we're keeping her alive."
I can't reveal everything just yet.
The woman replied cryptically. "We're moving at a snail's pace." Bjorn scoffed. "I get that there's a plan, but I'm on the ground, ready to act, yet I'm stuck in the shadows."
And your impatience is precisely why we're withholding information.
The woman cautioned.
Rushing could jeopardize the future of the 7 families.
"What if I don't care about their future?" Bjorn challenged. "I have Olivia and Chris within my reach. I can do as I please. What if I decide to go rogue?" The woman chuckled heartedly.
Remember, I have eyes on you. Your fancy penthouse, your every move. I see it all. Do you understand what that means?
Through clenched teeth, Bjorn replied. "No. What does it mean?"
It means you move when I say so. Stick to the plan, is that clear?
The woman demanded. Bjorn fell silent for a moment before grudgingly conceding. "Understood." Satisfied, the woman decided to end the call.
I like your confidence, your swagger, and even your anger. Let's hope you keep that edge for our next chat, but don't make any rash decisions.
Before Bjorn could respond, the woman hung up, leaving him seething as he pressed his fist against the penthouse window, gazing intently at the city below. "I'll uncover the truth, with or without them," he vowed. Victoria awoke early, as was her routine, and began preparing breakfast for 3, her hands moving almost mechanically through the motions. But as the smell of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee filled the kitchen, a harsh reality slapped her awake. She no longer shared a home with Michael. "Good morning," Olivia drawled, stretching luxuriously before sauntering out of her room, her disheveled hair framing a half-amused, half-mischievous smile as her eyes darted to the 3 plates on the table. Victoria quirked an eyebrow, her tone sharp and curious. "Up so early, huh? I thought you were hanging with your friends today." Olivia shook her head and replied, "No, I'm helping Millie move, but we've got some cleaning to do first." Victoria's curiosity piqued. "Millie's moving?" she asked. "Yeah," Olivia confirmed. "She's moving in with a classmate from our school, Lena." Concern crept in Victoria's voice as she asked, "And Millie's parents are okay with that?" Olivia was hesitant before she explained. "I'm not sure how her parents feel, but Millie's been feeling suffocated at home. You know, her dad's the principal and she can't escape school or him. She just wants a taste of freedom and independence before she gets to college." Victoria pondered the situation. As her eyes lingered on the 3rd plate of food, she couldn't help but wonder if Olivia wanted freedom Would she be left alone like Millie's parents? As Olivia wrapped up her morning routine and stepped out of her room, an unexpected knock echoed through the house. Her lips curled into a sly smile as she approached the door. "Dad, you're really going for the surprise factor today?" I just thought I'd drop by," Michael quipped, holding a bouquet of flowers, his smile tinged with nervousness. With a hint of skepticism, Olivia gestured for him to enter, fully aware that Victoria might not welcome this unannounced visit. "Come on in." As Olivia and Michael walked into the kitchen, they exchanged a knowing glance, their new plans simmering in the back of both of their minds. Olivia couldn't help but nudge Michael with a sly smile. "Nice touch with the flowers, Dad. That's a good start." Michael grinned, relieved that Olivia appreciated his gesture. "Yeah, I figured it might help break the ice." Olivia nodded, her tone conspiratorial. "Just remember, you've got to be patient. Let her warm up to you again. It's all about timing." Michael's eyes sparkled with determination. "I know, Liv. We'll take it one step at a time." As Victoria walked into the kitchen, her expression shifted to a mix of surprise and annoyance when she spotted Michael in the kitchen with Olivia. "Who invited you?" Her irritation was evident, given her recent request for some breathing room. Michael looked up, his gaze innocent. "Oh, I remembered you like flowers, so I brought these." Victoria hesitated for a moment, torn between her annoyance and the genuine thoughtfulness of the gesture. Eventually, she accepted the flowers but kept her guard up. Observing Victoria's hesitance, Michael and Olivia exchanged a knowing glance. Their plan might be starting to work, but it was still a delicate situation. "Be careful out there," Victoria cautioned, her voice filled with concern. "The news keeps telling scarier and scarier stories. You never know who might be lurking around a street corner these days." Olivia nodded, her tone sincere. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be fine." "All right," Victoria conceded, still watching Michael closely. Soon the three of them ventured outside. Olivia led her dog Polly to Lena's place, while Victoria and Michael headed to work. "You're more than welcome to hop in with me and Ansel," Michael offered to Victoria. Victoria paused. Should I get in the car with him? She thought. She wanted to be firm about her need for space. Ansel opened the door of the SUV, and Michael hopped in, hoping Victoria would follow. Filled with reservations and her guard up, Victoria gets into the car. It's better than riding the subway, she figured. Michael and Victoria sat in the back seat of the SUV, with Ansel at the wheel, heading to the office. "I appreciate the flowers, but you should know it doesn't change anything," Victoria remarked, her gaze fixed on the passing scenery. Michael winced slightly, his tone earnest as he responded, "I understand, I really do. I'm determined to make things right between us. You have to understand, Victoria, I never wanted to hurt you." Victoria, still guarded, paused before speaking. "Making things right might mean giving me the space I asked for." Michael's hand almost reached out to comfort Victoria, but he restrained himself, replying, "I know you need space, and I'll make a better effort to give you that." Victoria nodded, her emotions stirring within her, rendering her speechless. "But I'd still like to bring you flowers. Maybe even take you out to dinner at that Italian place you love," Michael said just as they pulled up to the building. "Perhaps someday," Victoria replied as she stepped out of the car ahead of Michael. Victoria gathered her emotions as she walked into the building. It was nice to see Michael making an effort, but she knew she couldn't go back. Right? Victoria got on the crowded elevator, and Michael entered shortly after her. Victoria could feel Michael softly staring at her between all of the people. As soon as Victoria reached her team's part of the office, she heard Shelley's giddy voice in the distance as Shelley talked to another coworker. "Oh my gosh, have you seen the CEO? He's like ridiculously handsome." Shelley ogled the magazine cover in front of her, her eyes wide with infatuation. "I mean, seriously?" The coworker across from Shelley teasingly asked, "What about your boyfriend, Shelley? Wouldn't he be a tad jealous if he saw you drooling over the CEO like that?" The person next to Shelley chuckled and chimed in, "Yeah, and let's not forget, the CEO is like twice your age. He could be your dad or your creepy uncle." Shelley waved them off, undeterred. "He wouldn't mind. I'm just appreciating a man who's smoking hot. He's into babes he can't have all the time," she said, adding a playful wink. "Besides, older guys are in now. They're all mature and sophisticated, way hotter than those immature 20-year-olds. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Everyone playfully teased Shelley. She was clearly head over heels. "But seriously," another girl leaned on Shelley's desk. "This magazine is from last year, right?" Shelley pouted. "Yeah, but I don't get it. Our new CEO used to run a huge company. Why do you leave all that for a small company like ours?" "Who knows? Rich people have their own quirks," the girl mused, shaking her head. Victoria, now at her desk, couldn't help but join in. "What's all the fuss about? Are you discussing the new CEO again?" Shelley beamed and thrust the magazine like it was a precious artifact. "Victoria, look. Isn't he just smoking hot?" When Victoria looked at the magazine cover, she was stunned. Her mind raced. She couldn't believe it. Michael, the last person she expected to see as the CEO, was the man on the magazine cover. Her heart pounded in her chest. Internally, Victoria questioned, "Why didn't he tell me? How long has he been keeping the secret from me? Why didn't he say anything?" Shelley practically bounced in her seat. "He's the hottest, right?" Victoria tried to maintain her focus on her work, even though she was freaking out inside. She tried to seem unbothered by Michael's face on the magazine cover. "I don't really care how he looks. I'm here to do my job and get paid. As long as he manages that, that's all that matters," she replied, trying to steer the conversation back to work. Shelley couldn't hide her disappointment, pouting as she rested the magazine on her desk and sighed dramatically. "Oh, you're no fun. If I were 10 years older, I'd totally be his wife. Picture waking up to that handsome face every day." Victoria looked away, refraining from revealing the harsh reality. She wanted to say, "It's not all roses being his wife, and if you were, you'd probably be divorced by now." Instead, she kept her silence. "Yeah, right," the other coworkers chimed in, sharing a laugh. "Even if you were 10 years older, he'd still be way out of your league." "That's true. He's the heir to the Johnson family fortune," another said. Victoria watched her coworkers laugh as she fumed. There was only one thing on her mind. She needed to talk to Michael. Several floors up, Michael sat in his spacious office with Ansel seated across from him. "Is a divorce proceeding, Ansel?" Michael inquired. "Not yet, but I'm working with the courts to figure out what's causing the delay," Ansel replied. Michael let out a sigh, rising from his chair to gaze out of the large windows in his office. After a moment of contemplation, he began, "Ansel, what can you tell me about Nate Evans?" "I don't know much about him apart from his role in the finance department. Why do you ask?" Ansel inquired. "I'm trying to win Victoria back. Olivia's helping me, but I feel like Nate's a problem. He threw my marriage in my face. Can you believe that?" Michael admitted, trying not to get upset. "I think Victoria might like him." Michael struggled to say, "For now, that's okay, but if I want her to trust me again, I can't have anyone getting in the way." "Ah, I see," Ansel said, not used to such a vulnerable admission from his boss. "So what's the plan with Nate?" Michael thought for a moment before saying, "I don't have a clear plan yet, but whatever we do needs to be slow and happen over time. Find out whatever you can about Nate, anything that might make Victoria want to stay away from him. We'll reveal Nate's true self little by little as I rebuild her trust, and she'll probably distance herself from him." Ansel leaned forward, concern in his eyes. "Michael, what if Victoria finds out about your plan with Nate? What if she thinks you're manipulating her? She might never trust you again." Michael's face paled at the thought. I hadn't thought about that. But if I don't do something, I'll lose her forever. Should I proceed? Ansel questioned. Michael nodded with uncertainty in his eyes as he asked himself, how far am I willing to go to win Victoria back? But what if I can't find anything? Ansel wondered. You'll find something, Michael said confidently. Everybody has secrets. Back on Victoria's floor, her female coworkers were still all in a titter over the new handsome CEO. His name is Michael Johnson, one of the women on the floor said. So he must be part of the illustrious Johnson family, no? That would make sense, another woman added. I've heard that family loves to acquire new businesses. Maybe that's what he's trying to do here. Victoria's mind raced as she continued to stare at the familiar face on the cover of the magazine. How could Michael do this to me? She thought. I knew he was sneaky, but going behind my back like this is a total breach of trust. Are you okay? Shelley asked Victoria, suddenly breaking her train of thought. Victoria turned to Shelley and tried to relax her face. I'm fine, Victoria answered. Just a little stressed with all the upcoming work we have. Victoria stood. I think we should all get back to work and stop worrying about inconsequential things, like how good-looking the CEO is. Victoria snapped at her coworkers before walking off. The women all exchanged a look behind Victoria's back. What's gotten into her? Shelley whispered to her coworkers. Victoria stomped her way down the hallway. She couldn't believe she let herself be deceived this way, and by someone she trusted so much. How could she be so stupid? She stopped in front of an oak-paneled door and took a breath. She was absolutely livid and knew she needed to steady herself before entering. After letting out the breath, she knocked on the door. Come in, a voice said from inside the office. Victoria entered and saw a man in a suit standing with his back to her as he looked over papers. I need to talk to you, Victoria said forcefully. The man turned, smiling at the sound of her voice. But as soon as Nate Evans saw the look on Victoria's face, his smile fell. Victoria, Nate said, rushing to the other side of his desk to pull out a chair for her. Please sit. I'm too angry to sit, Victoria said as she began pacing the office. How could you? Why would you? I can't believe. Victoria was so angry she couldn't finish her sentences. It was as if her thoughts were rushing so quickly through her head, they couldn't be fully processed. I think if we just take a sit and calm down, Nate offered, but Victoria glared at him, shutting him up immediately. How long have you known? Victoria clipped. Nate sighed. He wasn't going to be able to easily get out of this one. He might as well start telling the truth. A while, he answered, looking down at his feet in shame. Victoria could feel her face growing hot. Tears began brimming in her eyes, and she fought them back. So this whole time, the two of you were keeping this from me. All for what? To make me look like some kind of fool when the news was released? Nate hated that he had caused Victoria so much pain. He wanted to reach out to comfort her, but he knew it would not be well received. Of course not, Nate said calmly. If you'll just let me explain. Victoria looked at the man in front of her. She didn't know if she could trust him ever again, but she might as well listen to his excuses. Fine, she answered. You can try to explain yourself. When I found out that Michael Johnson was our new CEO, I thought that you must already know, Nate told Victoria. She scoffed, not buying it. It's true, I assumed you had to know, but you were keeping it on the down low because you didn't want people to think there was any kind of favoritism towards you, Nate continued, desperate for Victoria to believe him. Victoria lightened slightly. That did sound like something she would do. Victoria hated nepotism and discouraged it even with her own once very powerful family. It wasn't until dinner the other night that I realized you had no idea, Nate continued, taking a step toward Victoria. Even then, I didn't think it was my place to tell you. It seemed like something you should discuss with your partner," Nate added, admittedly fishing for more information on their relationship at this point. "Well, Michael obviously didn't tell me," Victoria said angrily, "and he's not my partner. We aren't even sharing an apartment anymore." At this, Nate perked up. He took another step towards Victoria, fighting his ever instinct not to touch her. "Victoria, I know it's none of my business, but I don't think you should be with that man. You deserve someone who respects you and treats you like a queen." Victoria looked at Nate. While she was angry with Michael, she was confused as to why Nate seemed to care so deeply about her personal life. He took another step towards her, this time placing his hands gently on her arms. "Victoria, I should tell you." Just then the door opened, and Nate sprang backward from Victoria. "Mr. Evans, you have a meeting on the 3rd floor in 5 minutes," Nate's assistant called from the doorway of the office. "Thank you," Nate answered. The assistant lingered a moment, waiting to see if there was anything else he could do for his boss. "That'll be all," Nate added curtly. As soon as the assistant closed the door, a new awkwardness permeated the room. "I should let you get to your meeting," Victoria said, turning to leave. But Nate reached out, grabbing her wrist to stop her. Victoria swallowed, then turned to him, unsure what would happen, unsure what she wanted to happen. "I just want to say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause you pain. I never want to be that person to you." Nate looked at her with genuine sorrow. "Thank you, Nate." Victoria smiled politely. "I appreciate that, and I understand why you did what you did. I never should have blamed you. This is clearly Michael's fault." Hearing this made Nate's heart skip a beat. He was so busy staring into Victoria's eyes that he was startled when she cleared her throat. My wrist," Victoria said, nodding to his hand that still held tightly to her wrist. Before letting go, and before he had a chance to chicken out, Nate asked, "Victoria, would you do me the honor of allowing me to take you out for dinner this Saturday?" Victoria looked at Nate with a mixture of confusion and annoyance. On the one hand, Nate Evans was a handsome and kind gentleman. On the other hand, how dare he ask her out at this moment? He knew what she was going through, and it was highly inappropriate of him to think this was acceptable. Victoria pulled her wrist back. "I don't think that's a good idea, Nate," she said resolutely. "I should go. Let you get to your meeting." Victoria turned and scurried out, leaving Nate feeling completely deflated. He had finally taken his shot and completely misread the situation. "What an idiot am I?" Nate thought to himself. Victoria walked out of the office, and her thoughts immediately turned to Michael. "He's the one I need to talk to," Victoria thought. "How could he do such an idiotic thing and think I wouldn't get mad? And what did he mean by buying me jewelry and bringing me flowers, all the while he was keeping such a gigantic secret from me?" Victoria marched over to the elevator and pressed the button, ready to burst into the CEO's office and give Michael a piece of her mind. But when the door opened, she paused. "Why am I still letting this man have so much power over me?" she thought. "Whether I'm happy or angry, there are still emotions I'm letting him manipulate. I need to calm down and get my thoughts in order before I speak to him." And with that, Victoria turned around, walking back toward her desk. After taking a moment to gather the necessary documents and shake off the previous moment's events, Nate exited his office for his next meeting. He was so distracted as he walked through the hallway, actively trying to avoid looking toward Victoria's cubicle, that he completely missed Lisa waiting for him. "Hi, Nate, headed to the meeting too?" Lisa asked him as he walked in her direction. But Nate just walked right by her, mumbling something to himself. Lisa couldn't believe it. Had he really not noticed her? Was she so unattractive or unappealing that he could just breeze by her without even a glance? Lisa pouted, then followed in Nate's direction towards the meeting room. Inside the meeting room, all of the attendees began to take their seats around a large mahogany table. Once everyone was seated, Michael Johnson entered the room, accompanied by Ansel Parr. "Good morning, everyone," Michael addressed the crowd in a commanding voice. Before we get started, I have a quick matter to address." Michael nodded at Ansel, and the man pulled a folder out from his briefcase and began walking around the room to distribute photocopies of a document to all of the attendees. "In front of you, you will find a photocopy of a document I received anonymously this morning," Michael continued, a twinge of agitation in his voice. Everyone looked at the document curiously. When Ansel placed the paper in front of Lisa, she recognized it immediately. Wasn't this the document Victoria had given her? How had it found its way to the top of the company? That little whore, Lisa thought to herself. First, she steals Nate's attention from me, now this. Now, the contents of the document may not seem like a big deal. Someone moved some numbers around in one of our lowest departments. What's the big deal, right? Michael said, scanning the faces of his new employees. But I want everyone to know that I take this matter extremely seriously. I know who is behind this. Michael's eyes seemed to fall on Lisa right as he said this, but he flicked them away so quickly she couldn't be sure. And I want you to know. Michael let the sentence hang in the air, causing Lisa to break out in a cold sweat. That the person responsible will not be punished this time. Lisa felt her body relax. She was in the clear. But, Michael considered sternly, next time, if there is a next time, you will be punished so severely, I will make sure you will never work in this city again. Michael walked around the room as he spoke, causing shivers to go down the spines of each attendee as he stepped behind them. Hell, I'll make sure you can't even get a job at McDonald's, he added, causing Ansel Parr to let out a snicker. Nate shifted in his seat. How could Victoria have had feelings for such a ruthless, cold-hearted man? Nate thought. She deserved someone kind and warm who would always be there for her. Someone like him. Then again, he couldn't exactly blame Michael for being so harsh. This was no small matter, and he would be just as furious if one of his direct subordinates pulled something like this. But who could have done such a thing? Nate wondered to himself. Just then he caught a glance at Lisa, who squirmed in her seat. It seemed she had started sweating, and her skin had become almost 2 shades paler than usual. It was Lisa, Nate realized suddenly. As if sensing his gaze, Lisa looked up, locking eyes with Nate, who glared angrily at her. Now, Michael clapped his hands together, back at the front of the room. Let's get on with business, shall we? But Nate and Lisa were not listening. Their gazes still locked on each other. Lisa knew that somehow, against all odds, Nate knew she was responsible.